Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson. Here on the Monday edition of the Yard, still kind of dealing with a little bit with this cold, but thought I was over it on Friday. And it kind of came back, and you know how it goes, man. It's like till it's gone, it's gone. But yeah, we persevere, man. We do. We're not going to let, little sinus infection slow us down. And hopefully that's all it is. But either way, I do feel better. I don't feel great, but I do feel better. So great show for you today. We're going to look back at a crazy weekend that was. Got a very unique top 10 list by request. We're going to talk about a little bit about state and Florida, some other things that are happening. Of course, some basketball stuff. As the SEC media days get underway, we'll have Jacob Bain there. He'll drive over tomorrow and be there for Mississippi State's day on the dais on Wednesday. And, voting's already taking place by the coaches. And we'll get into some of that stuff, too. Hope you guys are doing well wherever you are. As many of you know, it was a very challenging weekend in the great state of Mississippi. We had multiple shootings around the state, somewhat connected to homecoming events. I've got some people that believe that many of these are connected in some way. Like there's a bigger picture here. I'm not going to get into all that stuff. I'm not saying that the perpetrators knew each other, but they may have been affiliated in some way. But no matter what that turns out to be, it's a very challenging time for our state. And the thing that I would suggest, and, the thing that I read so much online is like people are like scared to let their kids go to a high school game on Friday. We're going to go. We're going to continue to do what we do. We're going to live life as we live life. And we're going to put our trust in the man above and do what we're supposed to do. But I can tell you there's a lot of parents out there that are kind of second thinking some of this stuff. And I understand that. I understand it. And I think parenting is part of an issue here, too. There has to be consequences for young people. There has to be consequences for anybody. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of families that are hurting today, including the families of those that perpetrated these acts of violence. You never think it's going to happen. Your kid. I've told people before, the last thing that you want is me to be the guy that gets interviewed on TV as your neighbor. That's the last thing you want. Because I'm just going to tell the truth about you. I'm not going to sit here and say you lit up a room every time you walked in, because you don't. But matters of this magnitude deserve the attention of all Mississippians and citizens around the country and around the world. We cannot condone these acts of violence, no matter who perpetrates them, whether they are acts of international or domestic terrorism. That's essentially what they are. And when you put other people's lives in jeopardy over what's considered kind of a personal beef or whatever, it's not great. It's not, as you guys are well aware. A lot of innocent people get hurt by these things. And I don't have all the answers. I don't know that I have any of the answers, but I do think in many respects it starts at home. It does. And you hope and trust that other parents are kind of socializing their children as you're socializing yours. And the thing that I have learned, and this is one of the things that recovery has taught me, is that you can't save people without fear. And that's the reality of the whole thing, whether it's recovery or anything else. If people don't value their lives, they're certainly not going to value the lives of others. And as somebody who has spent some time incarcerated, I can tell you that's not a life you want to live. No matter what anybody tells you, there's no glory in being incarcerated. And I know at times we glorify that sort of thing, and that's wrong. It is. It's wrong. There's nothing hard or tough or noble about being a prisoner. It's not. You need to find some value in your life. And I can't sit here and tell you there hadn't been times in my life I haven't been angry enough at somebody to really hurt them. I have been. Just haven't always acted on it. There have been other times that I have when I was younger and maybe a little more misguided. But, we have an epidemic in our country And the thing that I've learned about that too is if somebody really wants to harm you, they'll find a way to harm you. It's not as easy. It's just saying, well, we'll take this method away. Wasn't too long ago, I remember there was some teenagers that were killed for throwing a vat of acid off an overpass that busted somebody's window and eventually killed them. And there was another situation where they lived. And that's difficult life. But we have to make sure that we educate our children, because I remember being a kid, I got caught throwing eggs at cars. And we thought it was funny. And my dad found out and read me the riot act about the possibility of causing an accident. It's not as simple as just a funny joke. You could hit the wrong car and have somebody that is startled and they turn into traffic. And there's an accident and somebody gets injured or killed. And you're directly responsible for that. And he really impressed upon me the value of life, and that a joke is never worth something of that magnitude. And it's true. It's an important lesson to learn. And I had some other lessons I had to learn on my own. And I'm sure my dad, left up to him, he would have certainly imparted some wisdom to me to help me avoid that. I remember very, very serious heart-to-heart conversations with him about the road that I was on. I just didn't listen. But he did his part. And those lessons eventually took root. And so, I share that with you because there are so many people that have been impacted by this, even people not even within those communities. But I think in many respects for Mississippi kids around the state, it's kind of about, their innocence has kind of been wounded as well. It's like I can't even go to a high school football game and just enjoy being with my friends and cheer on my teammates and, see my friends on the dance team or in the band without having to look over my shoulder. I mean, that's just unfair. It absolutely is. But our hearts go out to everybody involved in all of this. And, I share this openly. Parenting is for grown folks. It is. Marriage is for grown folks. But parenting certainly is for grown folks. No matter the circumstances, how you became a parent, you have a responsibility to that child, to your family name, and to your community to raise them up in a way that they understand the difference between right and wrong and how important it is to do things of value, to add to our society, not to bring detriment to our society. And that's where we stand. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show. We love Bulldog Burger Company. We have for a long, long time. It is an institution around here. We enjoy it. We do. We enjoy going. And one of the main reasons that we do is because of the fact we get what we want when we go there, right? There's just so much consistency with Bulldog Burger Company. That's one of the most important things. You have the opportunity to go put your feet under their table and just kind of let them take care of everything. Not a lot of places do that. There are some places I go, I just don't get that same level of service. If I'm going to go to the trouble of going out and try to enjoy the convenience of going out, I don't want it to be some assembly required, right? I want them to be able to kind of take care of things. And they do, and do such a great job. Bulldog Burger Company has 3 great locations to serve you: University Drive in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harper Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Get the spring rolls as your appetizer to make you and everybody around you better looking. It's true. It's true. Find your own favorites. I got the Pimentology add bacon last week. Outstanding. Just as great as I remember it. And that kind of satisfies that craving. I've been thinking now about the smokehouse of the Fresh and 15. May get that this week before we hit the road to Gainesville. Find your own favorites. You'll be glad you did. If you're not feeling like a burger, you can have that great BLT salad. I prefer it grilled. You may like it fried. I'm not judging. You get it how you want it. It's a very substantial portion. And get that chocolate shake to go. You can ride that ride home with a smile. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. Okay, let's take a look at the weekend that was. And I got to tell you, Washington State gave Ole Miss a better game than I expected. I thought it would be like a game early, and then Ole Miss would put them away. Trinidad Chambliss had some difficulty in this game. Lane Kiffin said at halftime, let's not do D3 stuff. And Ferris State's a D2 school, but the point is well received, right? Cham was 20 of 29 for 253 yards, a couple touchdowns. But, Washington State had the ball late with a chance to tie. Not much time left. But Ole Miss wins it 24-21. Advanced their record to 6-0, ranked 4th in the country. Now, I think we can say, just like we did a couple weeks ago about LSU and maybe a month ago about South Carolina, this Ole Miss team is good. I don't think they're the 4th best team in the country. I think that's fair to say. And I think even the objective Ole Miss fans will probably say the same thing. But the reality of it is they've had 6 games to play, and they've won all 6. Things get a little more, the trail gets a little dustier from here. But, hey, you win a game when you don't play well. And that's what good teams do, right? Ole Miss didn't play well in this game. And you look up all of a sudden, late in the third quarter, Washington State gets loose on a run off the right side and makes it a 14-10 game. They just couldn't get a stop. Ole Miss answers, and then they trade touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But Washington State, I think, kind of showed that this Ole Miss team has some imperfections. There are no perfect teams. Not a great turnout for the fans. It's kind of happening everywhere. It's like when you get the big SEC home game, the night game, you're going to get a big crowd. When you get the non-conference game, you're not. And even those that made their way to Oxford, I'm sure many of them just kind of hung around a tailgate. But, not a great crowd. But nevertheless, it's a win for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. And again, double-digit wins, 3 of the last 4 years? On their way for another one. Texas A&M and Florida, a game that we watched with great interest. And, we got a game coming up against Florida. So you probably did your advanced scouting, just like I did. Very entertaining first quarter. I went back and watched this game in its entirety yesterday. 14-14. And as I've noted in an article just yesterday, Florida has scored on 5 of their 6 opening possessions this year. The one they didn't was against Miami. They're 2-4 on the year. The 2 games they've won, DJ Lagway has run for 40 yards or more. The games they've lost, he hadn't. So that's kind of a key. And again, Lagway not 100% healthy, so they don't want to, put him in harm's way. He had a decent game, not a great game. They kind of got the passing game going early, just kind of working some man-to-man stuff outside the numbers, won some 50-50 balls, but 21 of 37, 245 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I believe Florida converted 1 third down. So in 3 SEC games, Texas A&M's defense has allowed 2 third down conversions. Maybe they're better than we thought. And they certainly took over in the second half. And again, it's so interesting to watch these little nuggets we dig up from time to time. We said going into the Mississippi State game, A&M had outscored every opponent this year in the second quarter. Well, that trend continues. They do it against Mississippi State 7-0, do it against Florida 7-0. Something to watch. That's good coaching. That's what that is. You script out the early stuff, you figure out how they're going to defend you, and then you adjust off of that. But it's a 21-14 game at the break, and then in the second half, and especially in that fourth quarter, A&M puts that thing away. When you've got the ability to stop the run and to run the football, as many a football coach will tell you, when I can block you and you can't block me, you can't beat me. And that's kind of what happened to Florida here. Their running game has not been good. Jordan Bowe, kind of the leading back for the Florida running game, 18 carries for just 65 yards. If we get that, good chance we're going to win the football game. One of the surprises for me, Texas not only beats Oklahoma, but defensively, Texas really slowed down Oklahoma. And Mateer, of course, played. And last time we spoke, he'd been upgraded from questionable, then the probable, and eventually to play. He goes 20 of 38 for 202 yards and throws 3 picks. Maybe they rushed him back too soon because of the gravity of the game. It's the Red River Classic. Maybe they feel like that was their best chance to win, is to have Mateer play. I think he's played his way out of Heisman contention. The injury itself hurts you, and then the return game, you're right around 50% completion percentage and 3 picks. Yeah, but give it to Arch Manning. That's a game that obviously means a lot to Texas. Gets them 4-2, and that's a top 10 win. It's a rivalry game win. Very important. Alabama wins, but doesn't cover at Missouri. The spread was 3.5. Alabama wins 27-24. If you watch this game, at least to me, it never really felt like Missouri was ever going to get separation, ever. It's 7-7 after one, and at the break, it's 17-10. Missouri has an opportunity to kind of get some separation in the second half. They don't, even though they outscored them in the second half, they lose 27-24. Their first loss of the year. And a lot of people said, hey, Missouri hadn't really played anybody. And I don't know how good Alabama is. I know they have played a lot better since the Florida State game, but they're not a dominant team. But this, you can't say Missouri hadn't played anybody. Even though they played them at home, Missouri, I think, acquitted themselves pretty well against a pretty good Alabama team. I don't know if we've got an SEC team in the league this year that is capable of greatness. I really don't. Now, the game everybody's talking about, Georgia-Auburn. Now, before we get too deep in the reads, let me tell you, in live action, I thought at the goal line, I thought Jackson Arnold was in. That's what I thought in live action. And then, as they've slowed it down, and I've seen so many replays over the weekend, I do think the ball was loose. Everybody talks about the punch, but it looked like there was some hand traffic before that. The ball was moving as he approached the goal line. And now, I think if they had called it a touchdown on the field, that call would have stood too. I don't think there was a definitive replay that would have changed that. But it changed the complexity of the game. At this point, Auburn is up 10-0, and in many respects, I would say dominated the first half. Georgia couldn't get anything going offensively. That Auburn defense was legit. And you got to think, it's 17-0, right? All of a sudden, those points are off the board, and they were never officially on the board. But in your heart, you felt like we're up 3 scores with like a minute to go here in the first half. And you never know, hey, does Georgia rally and go get a field goal there? Or are they dejected? You just don't know how the game plays out after that. However, comes off the board. I thought the referees botched it all the way around. You got to let it play out. I think Georgia could argue that we should have had a fumble return for a touchdown for 99 yards. Well, they get the ball back around the 2-yard line, and they drive down the field and they get a field goal. So now instead of it being 17-0, it is a 10-3 game. So instead of it being a 3-score game, it's a 1-score game, and then Georgia takes over in the second half. Now, Hugh Freeze and I obviously have a history. One of the things that I have learned about the Hugh Freeze experience is when Hugh kind of feels like the world is against him, he kind of takes on a victim mentality. I think in this respect, like his comments at the half, I thought he actually handled it pretty well, considering the circumstances. But it wasn't just that play. And even though I think in the end, Ken Williamson's ragtag crew actually may have got that call right, but there were so many other things in the game too. There were a couple times Georgia was lined up off sides. They don't get a call there. They have the clapping timeout thing. And listen, I'm not a professional lip reader, but it looks like to me that Kirby's running to the side judge, signaling timeout, and saying timeout. And then all of a sudden, and it's 1 second to go on a play clock. It's either a delay of the game or it's a timeout. And he goes, they were clapping. And you know what? The replay shows that the Auburn safety was clapping. But do you really think that's what Kirby Smart's trying to communicate in that moment with just a couple seconds to go on the play clock? He's trying to get their attention that they're clapping. I'm just not buying it. I'm not buying it. Ken Williamson and that crew, controversy seems to follow them. Of course, Hugh Freeze and John Cohen both kind of follow them off the field there at halftime. That video's kind of made the rounds. But nevertheless, Georgia wins 20-10. Big win for Georgia. Terrible loss for Auburn. And, of course, you're coming off the open date. You got a game at home. It's in your capacity crowd. It's a rivalry game. Now you're 3-3. And you kind of begin to start wondering, if you're Auburn, you kind of start counting games here. Now, I don't think most people outside of maybe that Auburn locker room and maybe some of the true blue Auburn fans thought Auburn was going to win that game. But I think it's how they lost that kind of stays with you. Like if Georgia had showed up in there and beat them, 24-7, and just kind of methodically went about their business, I think you'd look at it and say, you know what, okay, I understand it. But now you've lost 3 games in a row. All of them in the SEC. Then you get Missouri coming in, and Eli Drinkwitz is a guy obviously who knows how to pick some things apart. I think Auburn should probably win that game. Then you got to go to Arkansas. You never know how that's going to play out. On the road or in the SEC. Then Kentucky comes in. Then you're at Vanderbilt. Then it's Mercer. So if you're Hugh Freeze, and I think maybe it's not fair to say he's coaching for his job, but man, if they go 0 for down the stretch here until they get to Mercer, I think you're in a bad spot. I really do. I really do. I think you're counting games and you feel like, okay, well, we'll count Mercer. But is there any other game right now that you can count 100%? You feel like maybe that Arkansas game is one you can get, and that may get you 5 wins. Would 5 wins going into the home game against Alabama be enough? Is 6-6 enough for Hugh Freeze in year 3? I don't know. I guess John Cohen and the administration at Auburn will be the ones to decide that. But they've got to make hay here in the months ahead, in the weeks ahead. And again, you've 3 losses in a row, but it's basically been all 3 top 10 teams. And you got a number 16 team coming to your place again this week. That's a must-win game, an absolute must-win game if you're Auburn. South Carolina at LSU, and of course LSU kicks a field goal late to cover. Don't tell me they don't pay attention. South Carolina now 3-3, but it was a very interesting game. South Carolina up 7-3 after 1, and again, this LSU offense is just so erratic. Tigers up 10-7 at the break, and then after 3, it is a 17-10 game. 1-score game. And they drive down late and kick a field goal to basically make it a 2-score game late to put it away. Yeah, you got to take the field goal there. But at the end of the day, LSU wins the game, but they still haven't fixed their problems. Really good defense, very, very pedestrian offense. One of the wildest games of the day, Tennessee. And again, I felt like Arkansas would cover. I'm going to take credit for this one. My thinking behind this one was Arkansas with Bobby Petrino, who is an offensive mastermind, 2 weeks to prepare, comes out, has some scripting to kind of challenge this Tennessee defense, maybe some things Arkansas hadn't put on tape, because that's always the worry with the in-season coaching change, is they add new wrinkles. And they had the benefit of the open date there to really kind of change their identity a little bit. And I thought, Green was good. 21-31, 256 yards, a couple touchdowns. But, man, in that fourth quarter, Tennessee was absolutely all over him. And then Deshaun Bishop has that very unfortunate tackle late in the third quarter. He was having a great game, 14 carries for 146 yards. And so, again, it just kind of shows me I think you can still run on Arkansas. And it'll be interesting to see if Arkansas can kind of maintain this trajectory with Petrino. He's auditioning for the job. But now people have seen some things on tape. So, what changes are made now? You won't have the element of surprise again in these next couple of weeks. So we'll see how it kind of plays out. But Arkansas has now lost 4 in a row. They will meet A&M this week, one of my favorite SEC games of the year. They will meet in Jerry World. That's going to be interesting for sure. But I think if we just kind of take a first blush look at this thing, it's tough to think that you're going to go even to a neutral site and play a team and a defense that's playing as well as A&M, and they can run the football. Arkansas hasn't shown the ability to stop the run, so that's going to be interesting. Then you're 2-4, right? You got to find 4 down the stretch to get bowl eligible, and I think that's going to be essentially impossible. A&M, probable loss. You get Auburn at home. That's maybe a coin flip. Mississippi State comes in there, probably a coin flip. Then you're on the road at LSU. Then you're at Texas, and then home against Missouri. In those 6 games, I don't think that Arkansas is going to be favored except for maybe 1 or 2 of those games. It's going to be very, very difficult for Arkansas to get bowl eligible. I don't think there's any question about that. We talk about Tennessee and all the things that they've been through. seeing Nico and UCLA and all that kind of stuff. All those crazy things happen. Guys, they're one play away from being undefeated. One play away. 5-1 in the SEC. And you could make the argument, too, they're one play away from being 4-2 because Mississippi State fans feel like they should have beat them. Well, they got to go to Tuscaloosa this week. Then you're at Kentucky. It's always a weird game. Oklahoma, New Mexico State, at Florida, Vanderbilt. Pretty good schedule after the month of October. I don't think many people projected them to be a playoff team after Nico announced his departure in the spring. And I think this says a lot about Josh Heupel and that staff. Now, you could also make the argument, too, the only team they played that's in the top 25 was Georgia, and they lost that game. Every game they've won besides that. But they haven't really got into the meaty part of the schedule. But the thing about it is there's not a lot of meat left on the schedule. Outside of this Alabama game in Tuscaloosa, I don't think there's a game left that you would expect them to lose. So I think at 10-2, I think Tennessee finds its way into the playoff. Very interesting. Let's take our first look at the next week. LSU is at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, a home favorite at 2.5 over the Tigers. Both of them 5-1. Both of them ranked within the AP top 20. Vanderbilt, of course, their lone loss was to Alabama. And they've got the benefit of having 2 weeks to prepare. Clark Lee, obviously a defensive mind guy. They could get bowl eligible this week. Interesting, right? I just don't know if that LSU defense is going to afford them much. We'll see. I think in order for Vandy to win, I think it's got to be a game in the teens. That's what I think today. And with LSU's offense, that's probably what you'd expect. I think first 1 to 20 probably wins. Oklahoma's at South Carolina. This could be a little bit slippery. Now, the Sooners are a 5.5-point favorite on the road at Williams-Brice. The good thing for them, it is a day game, kickoff at 11:45, so there won't be quite that same atmosphere in the evening. And you got to wonder, too, South Carolina fans, are they ready to check out? Are they ready to get ready for basketball season? I don't know. But Mateer, if we get a healthy Mateer playing well, then maybe you like Oklahoma here. But I think South Carolina will make it a game. Texas A&M, of course, we talked about the game at Arkansas. The Aggies are a 7.5-point favorite. I think the strength of that defense, old school football still matters. We talk so much about spread offense and the vertical passing game, but teams that can run the football and stop the run, and then in addition rush the passer, great defense, great running football, that still wins games. And that's really what A&M's doing. Marcel Reed is not a great thrower. He's a great athlete playing quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. But he is a guy that can improvise a little bit. And I thought we did a really good job kind of making him make some difficult throws on the run that went incomplete. Does Arkansas have that ability? Those are the things you kind of begin to ask yourself. That Arkansas rush defense leaves a lot to be desired. Ole Miss heads to Georgia. Georgia currently a 7.5-point favorite in this game. I think a lot of that, too, is Georgia goes on the road last week, doubles up Auburn. Wasn't a great performance. But the thing that I've seen from Georgia is in second halves, they've pretty much dominated. Even that game at Tennessee, they were down, they battled back in the second half, and they forced an overtime, they win. Georgia is a finisher. And that's going to be really the challenge, I think, for Ole Miss. Ole Miss got to be in the game early, and it's so crazy how this thing works out. Trinidad Chambliss wasn't even on the roster last year. Austin Simmons leads them down after Jackson Dart gets hurt, puts a touchdown on the board, gets everybody all excited. Now he can't get on the field. Going to be an interesting game, and it's a top 10 matchup. That's the premier afternoon ABC game at 2:30 kick. And, of course, Mississippi State at Florida. We'll talk about that at great length throughout the week. The spread opened at like 10. It's now currently at 8.5. And that's changed even since some earlier postings. It was down to 9.5. Now it's down to 8.5. I don't know what it'll be. Probably settle somewhere around a touchdown, maybe 7.5. We'll see. But, Mississippi State has covered the spread in every game this year, with the exception of A&M. Yeah, we didn't cover them. Texas at Kentucky. I'm interested to see this game. and mainly because of the fact, we'll listen to it on the way back, is how will Sark and Arch Manning kind of contend with these odd fronts? We know that Kentucky is very offensively challenged. They're probably going to need the defense to score. But I think Kentucky could kind of muddy this thing up a little bit. A lot of people are going to say, well, maybe Arch has turned the corner. And maybe that's fair. Maybe they've simplified some things and given him a chance to do some things that he's comfortable with. But, it'll be interesting to see, can the Texas rush defense hold up against Kentucky? I think Kentucky is largely one-dimensional. But I think Kentucky can at least slow down that Texas running game. I think that's true. Tennessee, Alabama. I don't like the spread in this one at all. Alabama favored by 8.5. I think this is a much better game than that. I think Tennessee could win the game. I think the way Ty Simpson is playing, there's a lot of confidence at Alabama. But a 2-score game, I don't know that I see that. We'll talk about that later in the week. But an interesting game, and I think one that has some playoff implications. Missouri at Auburn, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Mizzou is a 1.5-point favorite on the road at Auburn. And if you're at Auburn, that's the only motivation you need. But at the end of the day, you look at this and you're like, you know what? We kind of are who we are. We've played really well defensively. And you got an offensive-minded team coming in here that didn't play exceptionally well last week. Probably looking to figure some things out. Drinkwitz, I think, has acquitted himself well in the last couple of years. It took him 4 years to kind of get rolling. But that's going to be an interesting one. And again, what does it mean for Auburn long term? Not just this year, but what does that mean in the Hugh Freeze era? That's going to be interesting to see too. So that's kind of your look ahead to next week's activities. All right, it's time for our Close with Blair Player of the Day. Save this number in your phone. I would just label it Mortgage Guy because you may forget his wonderful name. Blair Chandler, who will be getting married again soon. Phone number 601-500-2344. Again, just save that as Mortgage Guy because you never know when you're going to need him. 25 years of experience in this industry. Yeah, don't overthink it. There's a lot of people out there vying for your business. Don't complicate something as important as your mortgage. You may get in a bad deal, right? You may end up in this adjustable rate mortgage. Next thing you know, interest rates impact your bottom line. That may be the way to go in some situations. And that's why you need a seasoned loan originator that can help you with that aspect of it, right? So, visit closewithblair.com, C-L-O-S-E, with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Whether you're looking for your first home, your next home, or your retirement home, Blair can help construct your loan to give you the best chance for approval. Get the life hack, get that pre-qualification letter, really see your real estate agent jump into overdrive once they know your financing is secured. And maybe you're not in a position yet, but Blair can put you on a path to home ownership. You can trust him. He's a bulldog through and through. Blair Chandler at closewithblair.com. Our Close with Blair player of the day is Tony Mitchell. Jeff Lebby kind of spoke about him today. Isaac Smith still not quite 100%, and he did say that Fluff Bothwell was doubtful. We firmly believe that Fluff is out for this week. Leb says he's doubtful, but said he wasn't quite ready to put a designation on Isaac Smith or Albert Reese yet. And so I do think last week against A&M that we still played pretty well defensively with Tony Mitchell out there. And Leb said he thought Tony did some pretty special things. So maybe that puts you in a position where you can ride with Tony Mitchell and give Isaac Smith another week to kind of get ready. We'll see how things go. I do think there is a chance, probably a better chance that Albert Reese plays, just depending on how he responds to treatment. They've got to be able to get through practice on Wednesday. And then we'll see how things go on Thursday. And, of course, Friday's just kind of a walkthrough before we get on a plane. So we need to get a viable day of practice. But in the event that we don't, I think Tony Mitchell can pick up a lot of the slack. And maybe he's not quite as good as Isaac Smith, obviously. But the reality of it is we don't need to rush Isaac back before he's ready. And this is where the portal and the junior college signings kind of come in. Tony Mitchell and Alabama bounce back through East Mississippi Community College. Again, I thought he played really well last week and could be a big part of things as we head down to Florida this week. So we're going to highlight him as our Close with Blair player of the day. Okay. Got a testimonial over the weekend about our friends at Colito Guitars. I'm not going to break anonymity here and give you a name, but I'm going to share with you an email that I got, and I think it says a lot about this individual able to find my email, but nevertheless, regular Boneyard listener, he goes, I was excited when your show picked up Colito Guitars as a sponsor. I checked out their website and began to ponder a possible purchase. You should too. I called their number. I spoke to Daniel, who is the grandfather, for nearly an hour. Wonderful conversation ranging from Floyd Rose Tremlos to the 2013 Egg Bowl. He could not have been nicer and suggested I speak with his grandson about the specifics of the particular guitar I was considering. I did so and had another great conversation. I finally made my purchase and asked them to put on a set of 10s before shipping. I offered to pay for the extra expense, but they did it for free. I received my guitar approximately 48 hours later. I could not be happier. Wonderful company with wonderful service. And Steve, thank you for all you do for Mississippi State. Well, thank you, sir. And I followed up a little bit too. I was a little more interested to find out what exactly they got. He said, I got a Satriani, just as purple as Barney, my first Ibanez, and my first Floyd-style tremolo. Quite a bit different than my Fenders. Are you enjoying your Vi? Well, yes, I am enjoying my Vi. I am. But yeah, what a commitment there to get that Joe Sat original. And nevertheless, nice to get testimonials too. Nice to get testimonials from people that are soliciting our sponsors. And the reality of that is that's not just me reading you a line. That is an actual testimonial. Daniel's the guy that I met with in Starkville. We had lunch together. It was a great experience. It has been a wonderful partnership so far. So you need to visit Colito Guitars too. And I'm going to give you some information here. You can visit their great showroom in Lake Jackson, Texas, just south of the greater Houston, Texas area, and you can make your purchase in person. Or you can call over the phone, or you can order online. And just like our listener, if you have some specific requests, they can accommodate those for you. This is your guitar shop. It is. So visit CalitoGuitars.com today. That's CALIDO guitars.com and make your own guitar dreams come true. We're going to give you some incentive to do so. Promo code BSR, you know it well. That gets you a 10% discount. That gets you free shipping. That gets you no sales tax unless you live in the state of Texas. And they make a 5% donation to the Bulldog Excellence Fund. What a great incentive to do business with a Mississippi State company. That's Bulldogs looking out for Bulldogs. Whether you're a beginning player or a professional grade player, maybe you want to be. You just need to upgrade your gear. You can do so at Colito Guitars, whether it be gig bags or cases or new axes, strings, cables, anything you need to sound better, you can find at Colito Guitars. And I'm so happy to find out another Boneyard listener has made a great purchase and is very happy with the level of service. We've talked about it so many times. When I was so fortunate, they were actually making a run to Alabama, delivered my guitar in person, brought it to me in person, and it was ready to play, right? It was so great. And I got the guitar in my hands. I just couldn't believe it. I've wanted a Steve Vai original guitar my entire life. And since I was 16 years of age. And listen, I probably don't play well enough to make Steve Vai proud of me having the guitar, but I can tell you I'm proud of it. I'm absolutely proud to have that guitar. I got to make more time to play, but I enjoy having it. And you need to have some joy in your life too, the joy of guitar playing. Even if it's just kind of plugging in, playing a few power chords, letting off some steam, Colito Guitars can make that happen for you. Be sure and check it out today. All right, by request. And I don't remember who requested it because I got so many notifications. I looked, I couldn't find it. But it was a great, great suggestion. And it's songs with the title in the first line. And I knew immediately what one of those was going to be. Immediately. Now, after doing some research, I found about 30 songs that were probably worthy of our top 10 list. We're not going to do all 30. We're not even going to do any honorable mentions. There's some cover songs out there that I think are pretty cool too. Better than the originals. But So here we go. Songs with the title in the first line. And here we are, guys, 5 years into this thing, finding something original to talk about. So great suggestion. Number 10, we're going to go with the Guess Who's American Woman. Many of you know that song because of the Lenny Kravitz version. I like it too, but the original stands on its own. Number 9, the great Jimi Hendrix. We could have gone a couple of ways here, but I'm going with Hey Joe. Hey Joe. Love that track. Number 8, and I think I heard this at every high school football game for maybe 10 years in the early 2000s. Many of you know him as the former front man of the Misfits, but we're talking Glenn Danzig. And Danzig's mother, Do You Want to Bang Heads With Me? I never understand kind of the purpose of the song, but man, it absolutely rocks. Number 7, and again, we could have gone a few different ways here. The Beatles have had a handful, right? You know, Love Me Do, all that good stuff. But I think one of the most poignant songs in the Beatles catalog, which was also the title of a movie kind of loosely based on the Beatles, it's Yesterday. If you haven't watched that, I encourage you to do so. But the Beatles, Yesterday. All my troubles seem so far away, but now it appears they're here to stay. I believe in Yesterday. Number 6, the bride, a huge Boston fan, and she saw them live on the third stage tour, and like they immediately became like her favorite band for a long time. Led Zeppelin's number 1 for her, but of the American bands, Boston is like really, really far up there. I should let her do a top 10 on Boston one day. I should, because she knows the catalog better than you and I do. Because you know how it was back in the 80s. You bought an album, and you may only get to buy one every couple months, and you kind of wore it out, right? You needed new music. And so it wasn't just the singles that we listened to. I know that seems like a novel approach with all you young guys and your fancy Apple Music, iTunes, and Spotify and all that kind of stuff. A lot of single-serving relationships with acts. But back in those days, we'd buy an album, and we listened to every song on the album. It was a journey it took you on. And then you went to the show, you bought the T-shirt, and then things were great. And I remember to this day, when I go to a show, I pregame by listening to the latest album. But we're going Don't Look Back, which is a title track off the second album, Boston, a band too, that some great music and some great technological advances in amplification, but also some tragedy within that camp. Number 5, this is one of the more obvious ones for me. It's The Clash's London Calling. And if you don't know The Clash, you kind of owe it to yourself. Most of you only know Rock the Casbah, which is a great song. And I love that piano part in that. But London Calling is one of those songs that, was kind of a protest song in many respects about the direction of things. Speaking of protest songs, number 4, maybe the greatest protest song of all time. And it's the Pet Shop. No, it's not the Pet Shop Boys. It's Rage Against the Machine's Killing in the Name Of. Yeah, they open it up, that the great guitar riff, and it's Killing in the Name Of. And I remember a few years ago when they'd have the Britain's Got Talent thing, and whatever the winner of Britain's Got Talent was like the Christmas song of the year, and then the great people of Great Britain got together and said, no, we're not going to do that. They voted Killing in the Name Of as the Christmas song of the year because I won't do what you tell me. Love it, man. Number 3, it's Tears for Fears, man. Tears for Fears. Song's been covered, but I think the original stands on its own. Off the album Songs from the Big Chair, it's Shout. And it's one of those songs, too. Again, kind of a protest song. Let it all out. These are the things I could do without. Man, I love that track, even to this day. And I love the composition of it. There's just so much layered in that album, especially that song. Number 2, many of you know it from their live performance at Budokan, and everybody sings along, and to this day we have no idea what they're saying. But it goes to show you that music is the international language, and people just respond to a mood or a vibe or energy. It's Cheap Trick's I Want You to Want Me, because I need you to need me. I'd love for you to love me, but I want you to want me. Cheap Trick, still out there doing it big too, man. It's amazing, too, that a band with the kind of longevity that Cheap Trick has, that they kind of got reintroduced. They kind of faded a little bit in the 70s, they were having big success internationally. And they came back and covered "Don't Be Cruel," and that kind of introduced them to an MTV crowd. And then "The Flame" came out. And it was just so many great things with Cheap Trick. But number one, and it was the song that immediately came to mind when this topic first came up, and I even said, Back in Black's going to be on there somewhere, and it is. It's number one, AC/DC's Back in Black. A lot of people don't know the story. A lot of people don't know the story, and especially you young bucks. But AC/DC, of course, kind of on their last legs these days, and that's to be expected. They're all old guys now. Of course, we've lost Malcolm Young, and I see people out there saying, man, these guys should retire. You don't have to go see them play, but there are a lot of people out there that are bringing their kids to go see Angus and Brian Johnson, and those guys continue to play. And Brian, of course, has had a lot of health issues. But after Bon Scott died, a lot of people wondered if that was the end for AC/DC. And I think we could venture to say here that nobody has done a better job really having a second life as a band with a new singer than AC/DC. Brian Johnson came in and I thought really added, even though I love the Bon Scott stuff, Brian Johnson added some real machismo to AC/DC. And when Back in Black came out, everybody was like, holy smokes, this may be even better, a better version of AC/DC, which almost sounds sacrilegious. But Back in Black obviously was written in memory of Bon Scott. That entire album was. And again, here they are, goodness, man, 50-plus years into this thing and still performing at arenas all around the world. So that's the top 10 list, and I do take suggestions, as you guys are well aware. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out and let us know. Best way to do that is to hit up Roy Samanti on X at Dogmatic67, DAWGMATIC67. You can hit me up, but I get a lot of notifications. We may miss it. And, I don't know who can DM me these days and can't, but you should be able to hit up Roy. And you can find our great list on Spotify under the same handle, Dogmatic67, DAWGMATIC67. You can find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. We love Campus Bookmart. We do. We love Campus Bookmart. And why? Well, a lot of it's because they have the things we want. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, that's just kind of how life works. You find what works for you and you just kind of stick with it. That's the case with Campus Bookmart. I think everybody should be excited about Campus Bookmart. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When you're looking for Mississippi State merch, whether it be apparel or gift ideas, everything you need to detail out your fan cave, you can find it at Campus Bookmart. I'll be there again sometime soon, and we'll let you guys know about that. A lot of things kind of going on with Campus Bookmart. It's just so interesting to me that you have the opportunity to get Mississippi State merchandise from Mississippi State people. Super, super cool. And so you be sure and check that out at campusbookmart.net. If you're in town, go by and see their smiling faces. You'll be glad you did. But in the event that you can, or perhaps game day is a difficult shopping day for you, well, go check out Campus Bookmart online, courtesy of Al Gore's internet at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR. And that gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. Okay. We have the SEC projected order of finish. It's kind of been released now. And, it's going to be a bear of a league again. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be, there's change at Auburn, after they played for a national championship last year. May have been the only way that Stephen could get that job. Maybe. We'll see how it goes. But, it's a risk. I mean, it is. One of the best coaches you've had in college basketball in a long time retires, and maybe you want some continuity, so you go there. So we'll start the SEC preseason predicted order of finish. We'll start at the bottom and work our way up, okay? Number 16, South Carolina. And again, this is such an unforgiving league. It feels like South Carolina has been down for so long, they just can't get up. The same could be said for LSU's Matt McMahon. Of course, they had those sanctions, as you guys are well aware. Probably should have been worse, but I think it's safe to say, and a lot of people don't want to give John Cohen any credit, but I think hiring Chris Jans, we got the better of those two situations. And again, there were some people projecting we were going to hire McMahon even after we were no longer talking to him. We were already involved in the contract negotiations with Chris Jans. 14 on your list is Georgia. What do you expect from Georgia? Of course, Michael White's there now, and who knows? And that's the thing that I've always thought is, Georgia should never be bad at anything. But in this league, once you get down, even with the portal, it's very difficult to get back on your feet. Number 13, Texas A&M. Remember, the Aggies had a great team last year. We beat them and rushed the floor, and we were just kind of itching to do so. We did it the right way, too. Kudos to the fans and the students for letting us get the floor cleared. But, we needed a big win. And Chris Jans had a couple of close calls, and you get that one, you feel pretty good about it. Of course, Oklahoma at 12. And, of course, that was the game last year that really, really, really stuck in the Bulldog craw. We knew that we were a better team than them. We just didn't show it on the road. Number 11 is Vanderbilt. Not sure what to expect from Vanderbilt. It's a weird place to go play. You just never know. You never know what to expect. But obviously, the experts not projecting much. Your Bulldogs 10th, maybe a little lower than some people expected. I think it's probably about right. I think we're better than that. I think we will finish in the top half of the league. I think it's kind of a motivating factor too. But Bulldogs now at 10, and then number 9 is Texas. Interesting, right? Number 8, Ole Miss. Despite the fact that they basically have to replace the entire roster. Hey Dad and I kind of joked about that a little bit today too. He's like, hey, Chris Beard, that's the Chris Beard effect. And Chris is a good coach. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Missouri comes in at 7. I'm not sure what to expect from Missouri. They're a blue-collar team, and they will get after you. But it just seems like that roster is always in flux. I guess it's a case for all of us. Auburn drops to 6th, despite the fact the addition of Keyshawn Murphy. Wish he was still here, but he's going to be there. Arkansas 5. I'm not sure what to expect from Arkansas either. It always feels like Arkansas and Musselman, it always feels like nobody thinks more of them than they do. But some expectations this year. Alabama is 4. You expect that. They're going to be able to shoot the lights out. Tennessee 3, Kentucky 2, and then Florida 1. Todd Golden, of course, was a candidate for the Mississippi State job. Ends up going there to Florida and doing some very important things. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's kind of how it worked out. Now, the SEC All-Conference team, preseason All-Conference team, was also announced today. We'll run through that aspect of it. Alex Condon from Florida, obviously, and then Josh Hubbard. And the way that I read this chart means that Hub was the second highest vote getter. Otega Awe from Kentucky, he is your preseason player of the year. So that kind of flies in the face of what I was thinking. But nevertheless, that's that's a good pick. Tahad Pettiford with Auburn, LeBaron Phelan Jr. from Alabama. A lot of familiar names back. Nate Ament from Tennessee is your second team. Boogie Flan from Florida, also a second teamer. And again, if you're Florida, with the expectations that they have, you certainly should have multiple players getting preseason All-SEC honors. I think that is probably a fair assessment. I don't know that anybody would disagree with that. But it's interesting. It's interesting to kind of go back and just kind of see, who is what and kind of how this all goes. I'm trying to get the rest of this list up. You can hear that I'm like stalling, right? We'll see how that aspect of it goes too. Technology sometimes is a blessing and a curse. Yeah, pretty safe to say.
But Jacoby Gillespie makes second-team honors from Tennessee, and then there's Thomas Haw from Florida, Mark Mitchell from Missouri. So, again, that's 3 Gators that have made the preseason All-SEC teams. The third team is Malik Dia from Ole Miss, Aiden Holloway from Alabama, Carter Knox of Arkansas, Jalen Lowe from Kentucky, and DJ Wagner from Arkansas. And it's interesting, too. Some people out there think Arkansas may be a tad underrated. You know how well they're coached. You know how difficult a place it is to play up there. I mean, Bud Walton Arena is no joke. Even in an average year with Arkansas, their fans turn out and make it a very difficult road environment. And we've gone up there with some really good teams at times and played some very average Arkansas teams and come home with a loss, even though State's had the better of it maybe the last few years. But, it'll be interesting to see how Arkansas plays with expectations. I think they're a program that kind of likes to have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. I think that's one of those things there's some programs that they need to be doubted in order to feel like that they're ready to achieve, if that makes sense. So that's how it kind of plays out here. Let's look over here on the women's side of things and kind of go and see, what the expectations are for that as well. And I think it's probably fairly accurate. I think most of us, we just don't know what to expect from this Mississippi State women's team. There's just so many moving parts to this. There's so many new faces. There's some players that we were hoping would return that have left and gone elsewhere. So expectations for this group are just kind of going to be somewhat measured, I think. But I think, when you look at what Sam Purcell did last year with this team, getting back into the tournament, and to be fair, Sam Purcell has done more in the NCAA tournament than Chris Jans has. And Chris Jans has a ton of our respect, but maybe Sam Purcell deserves to have a little respect on his name as well. So let's look at again, we'll start at the bottom, work our way up. The SEC women here, projected order of finish. Arkansas 16, probably fair. Auburn 15, brand new coaching staff there. They could surprise a little bit. A&M is 14. Missouri is 13. Georgia 12. The Florida Gators 11. And then there's your Bulldogs at 10. So both on the men's and women's side, basically what they're saying is both of these teams are expected to make the tournament. Maybe somewhat bubble teams, but they're still expected to make the tournament. Alabama is 9. Kentucky 8. Vandy is 7, Ole Miss is 6, Oklahoma 5, Tennessee 4, LSU 3, Texas 2, and South Carolina, no surprise, they're at number 1. And again, a lot of questions about this Mississippi State women's team. I think there are probably more questions about the women there than there are the men. We'll run through the first and second team. No Bulldogs selected here. Madison Booker, your preseason player of the year, former Mississippi State commitment, of course. Followed Vic Schaefer to Texas. Flo J. Johnson, Reagan Beers from Oklahoma, had some big games against State. Joyce Edwards from South Carolina, of course, Madison Booker. Michaela Blake from Vanderbilt. And then your second team, Clara Strack from Kentucky, Michaela Williams from LSU, Cody McMahon from Ole Miss, Tanaya Latson from South Carolina, Talasia Cooper from Tennessee, and then Roy Harmon from Texas. And so, again, no Bulldog ladies selected in the preseason list. We'll see how things progress. But, we're getting ready to go play ball games, here in, 23 days on the men's side. And, we'll see how things kind of progress from there. But the reality of it is that this is talking season, and pretty soon it'll be walking season. And we need you in the hump. We do. I think it's an interesting schedule this year. Nobody's ever going to do any favors to Mississippi State. We're going to have to go earn everything in every sport. You see it every year. I'm not breaking any news there. But, if you're like me, I just feel like Chris Jans is always going to put us in a position to win. It's going to be up to us to execute. But the reality of it is that he is going to coach defense. He's going to coach effort, but he really doesn't have to do that a lot because he recruits effort. It's part of the bloodline and culture of Mississippi State. But we'll open up with North Alabama November the 5th. And so it's going to be a quick turnaround. We're going to have have an exhibition on the road at Houston October 26th. And then we have the home game against North Alabama. Then we hit the road to go play in the Sioux Falls, South Dakota thing against Iowa State. Then we're back, at Starkville for a little bit. But it's kind of a herky-jerky schedule. I mean, you get so used to playing so many home games early on. That's not really the case for the Bulldogs in a non-conference this year. And I think in the end, that could be something that could help us in the net, winning on neutral floors and in some road environments. But, again, we're going to need you in the hump. And, that's one thing that I have been very proud of in recent years is that when we've had these big games, people show up. There's been a few of them they haven't. But, for years and years and years, especially in the Ben Howland era, we just simply couldn't get people to the hump. We couldn't get it done. The ladies will open up on November 3rd against Davidson and Starkville. That should be a game that State wins handily. And then they're right back in action on Friday against Georgia State. And, of course, as we get closer to that, we'll look a lot closer at those opponents and see what they have returning. But, I don't know how challenging this non-conference schedule is for the ladies. We'll go to Texas Tech. Obviously, that'll be a barn burner of a game. But outside of that, everything else looks to be largely winnable. And State should be able to put together a really good non-conference record before we open up at home against Auburn on New Year's Day. But, it's a signal now that we're close. We're close. And anybody can make a list. And then how many times over the years has Mississippi State exceeded expectations of the so-called experts when it's come to men's and women's basketball? So we're excited to get going. I know you guys are as well. Many of you, I know, we got some fans, some very, very, very enthusiastic basketball fans that they love football, but they really can't wait for men's basketball to get started. And, I think a lot of it kind of reminds them of their college days. Richard Williams had some great years, as did Rick Stansberry. And it felt like that this was an opportunity that we could compete against the nation's elite, and we did. And we're eager to kind of see that back. And I know some people out there may be a little bit over-optimistic about this team, but that's what sports are about, right? Having some belief in your team. And I think if anybody has kind of earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to Mississippi State sports, it's probably your basketball coaches, right? Chris Jans, 3 consecutive tournaments. Sam Purcell, of course, has been there, 3 out of the last 4 years, and in the postseason has found a way to go win some games. You keep getting there enough, at some point you kind of break through. And, obviously we want to get out of that first weekend of the tournament. But I think this is a big year for Jans, too. Everybody's his guy, right? Everybody's bought into his culture. And, again, it always boils down to matchups. We want to avoid that 8-9 game if we can. And so we need to definitely win some marquee games in SEC play to give us an opportunity to maybe be a 6 versus 11 type game, maybe a 5 versus 12. I know people want to avoid that line, but the reality of it is I think Chris Jans continues to take us to the dance. Eventually, we're going to make a run in the dance. I believe that he is what I believe to be a very good tournament coach. I know the last 3 years we haven't had the opportunity to win a game or to advance out of the weekend. I think that first year against Michigan State, I guess it was 2 years ago, was a big letdown. But Tom Izzo, you know what to expect, right? But the reality of it is we have grown accustomed here to making the NCAA tournament, to hang a new banner, but we want more. We do. And I think we can all agree in that aspect. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle, bar none, when you're bringing a large group to town. Be sure and check out the Stark Vegas Clubhouse when you plan your next trip to Starkville. Maybe you've always thought about how great it would be to have everybody under one roof. Well, I can tell you, we've had that experience, and it is fabulous. Google the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. When you do, their Facebook page will pop up. You can peruse all the amenities available to you and your guests. Full-service kitchen, wet bar, back porch area, fire pit area, plenty of parking, 6 bedrooms, 2 baths, soon to be 3. But you've got an opportunity to make some memories at a very special place just 5 minutes away from the Mississippi State campus. You can do your tailgating right there. How cool is that? Come watch a ball game, get home, watch the rest of the games, kind of enjoy a meal with the fam, and then just kind of spend a couple days just being people, right? We lose our humanity sometimes in this social media age, and so I encourage you to reconnect with your folks, whether it be college roommates or family or friends or whatever. What a great place to stay, the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Now, when you Google, some booking options will pop up. You can book through Airbnb or VRBO, or you can save some money by booking through the Evolve website. Book through the Evolve website, promo code BSR10. BSR, the number 10, BSR10 gets you 10% off your stay. You could pay more, but why? Right? Be sure and check it out. You'll be happy you did. We had a great time there. We plan to do it again at some point. Just kind of get everybody together under one roof, because it's those in-between moments that matter the most. The Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the best place to stay in the Golden Triangle. All right, I'm going to make some of you feel old, but I'm doing this for your own good, okay? Listen up. Listen good. You can be a friend to your friends on social media. Guys, the latest thing making the rounds, about Dak Prescott paying off everybody's student loans from the 2015 class. Guys, that is totally fake. It is totally fake. The reports about Dak donating millions of dollars to the Mississippi State Athletic Department is totally fake. There'll be a story at some point soon about Dak walking on water. That's going to be fake too. Use some deductive reasoning and don't just share everything on Facebook that has Dak's face attached to it. So much of that is completely false, and it makes you look foolish. In addition to that, these people are engagement farming. They're putting a great story out there, even though it's false, knowing how beloved Dak Prescott is here and with the Dallas Cowboys. Now with the second leading passer in program history, people will just share it because it kind of matches his character, right? But when you do a little bit of research and you begin to think about the totality of that, how much money would it take to pay off all the student loans of all Mississippi State students from the 2015 graduating class? You think about the tens of millions of dollars, nobody would do that, okay? Don't do it. And if it comes from some little harebrained site you never heard of, chances are it's completely fake. It's just like every time I turn around Facebook, there's like a Photoshop picture of Jeff Labby holding some unlicensed T-shirt, and people will go buy those and get their money stolen, or you get some less than equitable piece of garbage for your money. T-shirt shows up and falls apart in the washing machine the first time you use it. Don't do it. Use reputable licensed vendors. And I share that again, but it's important to know. And I have these discussions with my mom, and I love her to death. I do. All the time. Mom, don't share that. Don't, Mom, unshare that. Please don't spread that because it's monetized content. And then what happens is the algorithm then brings more of that nonsense to you because you have shown a willingness to share it. Okay? If it seems too good to be true, chances are it is too good to be true. And I can't count how many times this summer that I had somebody hit me up on one of these harebrained websites saying Jeff Lebby had been fired, right? Or Dak Prescott was going to be the ambassador for Mississippi State sports. And this stuff is just made up. Don't share that stuff. Share our content, right? At least we're legit. And these people are out here trying to basically just, put some nonsense out there to get you to share it, to put a few bucks in their pocket. And there's never any accountability for it. So I'm just encouraging you, don't do it. If it's not from a reputable news source, don't share it. It's just completely false. Your Facebook, you can do what you want. But I'm just telling you, everybody else is laughing at you. And every time I see it, I go, right, fake, 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 fake. Consider unsharing this. And then people think, oh, well, maybe it's true. It's not true. It's not true. It's not. Understand that right now. On to other topics. A lot of craziness in the world of college football, and it's interesting. Usually we have all these firings like in November when the regular season's over, but now the portal has changed so much about that. Not to mention people want to salvage something from their season. You go back and think about Mississippi State in 2023, right? We fired Zach Arnett the Monday after the Arkansas game. And had we not done that, there would have been nobody at the State Southern Miss game. And there would have been no Mississippi State people at the Egg Bowl. People would have said, you know what, I'm just going to check out till next year. But you fire Zach. Greg Knox fires a group up. We beat Southern Miss. We nearly beat Ole Miss. And there's a lot of people that think, hey, this is the way to do it. We're paying so much nowadays, right? The demand for winning has never been higher. You look at James Franklin at Penn State. Just 2 weeks ago, they were ranked number 3 in the country, and now he's fired. And, of course, there have been some people over the years who said, I don't think James is going to get us, over the hump. And maybe that's a fair assessment because familiarity breeds contempt, right? But I think if you look and think about what James Franklin has done at Penn State, it's pretty remarkable, honestly. And you remember that program was just an absolute turmoil when he took over. But, hey, it's a new era, and that's probably the premier job that is open right now. I think that's probably a fair thing to say. I mean, there have not been many Penn State coaches in my lifetime. 2014 was the first year that James Franklin was at Happy Valley. And they have a winning season. They get a bowl victory in the Pinstripe Bowl. Guys, he was there for over a decade and had one losing season, and that was the COVID year. You think about this for a second. He has had 6 double-digit winning seasons, and he's fired today. Look, this last year, they went 13-3 and set a school record, made the playoff, won the Fiesta Bowl, losing the Orange Bowl, have a number 5 finish. They've had 3 consecutive seasons. They finished in the top 15 in the AP poll. He's 3-3, he's gone. I mean, you think, man, I'd love to have a stretch like that where they declined the bowl bid in 2020 because basically just about everybody got one. But the reality of it is they've earned a bowl game every year that he's been the head coach there. It goes 104-45, 64-36 in the Big Ten, wins the Big Ten back in 2016, which of course led to Joe Moorhead rising to prominence as a head coaching candidate. And now he's gone. And Matt Rule, of course, a Penn State alum, mentioned. Dan Mullen, obviously, that's been his dream job. He's been very open about that, at least at his time here at Mississippi State. But things are changing. And again, as we discussed it, Billy Napier was asked about it today. I transcribed his press conference earlier. And, it's crazy that I'm Googling right now. The majority of his press conference today was about some failures against A&M. And listen, I get, we deal with this every week, right? The reality of it is that outside of a couple of questions about last week, it's time to move on. It is. And Napier kind of said that, but he got some questions about what have your discussions been like with Scott Strickland? What's the locker room like? Hugh Freeze got some of those same questions. But as we stand here today, there are 8 FBS jobs open around the country. 8. October 12th. Yeah. Oregon State, second year for Trent Bray. They're 0-7. They've clearly made a mistake, right? Already one of the first teams in the country eliminated from bowl eligibility. We talked about Penn State. Opened up 3-0, rose to the top 5 of the country. 3 straight losses, they're done. And, they got major upset these last 2 games. UAB fired Trent Dilfer in his 3rd year, 2-4 start to the season. I always thought Trent was an interesting pick. Arkansas, of course, has already fired Sam Pittman. Oklahoma State's fired Mike Gundy. UCLA is open. Virginia Tech is open. And then Stanford fired Troy Taylor about some hostile behavior behind the scenes. So it makes you begin to wonder what's next, right? If Mississippi State upsets Florida this week, Is Billy Napier fired? It's one of those things you have to consider. Because if you're Scott Strickland and you're going to make a change, granted, you could do some things behind the scenes, but do you want to try to hire an interim coach? Promote a guy from within to kind of breathe some life into your program? If you look at what Arkansas did, they nearly pulled off an upset over Tennessee, and you begin to think, hey, we have to think about third-party dollars. Okay, we've already sold the season tickets, so we have that money. But what about single game ticket sales? What about concession sales? If you and your team are just mailing it in, people are not going to come. There's just too much competition for your entertainment dollar these days. Nobody's going to keep coming to the games just out of loyalty. There'll be a small percentage of people are going to come regardless because they just love going to your school. But everybody is having to make what they feel are very judicious business decisions because third-party dollars are at a premium. Very important. And I think as a result, with the House settlement, with NIL, with revenue sharing, everything that goes along with it, everybody is going to find a way to make rev, and this is part of it. And when you've got an unpopular head coach and you fire them, it brings new blood and new energy into the program because some people just want change for the sake of change. But when you've got a guy like James Franklin that has done so many great things, I don't think James Franklin's a guy that'll be out of a job for long unless he wants to be. But you begin to ask yourself, of these fired coaches, who has an opportunity to be a head coach again? Well, Trent Bray, not going to happen, right? Sam Pittman, I think Sam will probably coast a little bit on Arkansas's money, maybe take a year off and then go back and coach at Georgia as the offensive line coach. You never know what's going to happen there. UAB will have to kind of wait their turn. After all, they'll probably hire a coordinator from somewhere. But I begin to kind of consider, how wild is the coaching carousel going to be this year? And is it a good year to hire a football coach? I would submit to you it's probably not a good year to hire a football coach. And I'll tell you some other things that are probably going to be the trickle-down effect, right? If you're Keith Carter at Ole Miss, you know that Lane is going to be mentioned in connection with some of these games. So I'm sure his representation is to say, hey, let's go ahead and negotiate out a very beefy extension and raise. If you're Signetti at Indiana and you begin to think about these jobs coming open, it's like, hey, you can hold people hostage and say, hey, we need $10 million a year, we're going to leave. Because we know we can get it on the open market. Now, it's a dangerous game to play, but when you consider the fact that what if Auburn comes open this year? It's a great job, great fan base, great facilities, probably have the best IPF in the Southeastern Conference, if not the country. What if Florida comes open this year? That makes it interesting too. And if you're Scott Strickland, you can probably ill afford to wait. Florida's a great job. Florida's a top 5 job. Auburn's probably a top 10 job, at least top 15 job in the country. If those jobs come open, it's absolute chaos. What if South Carolina comes open? I think Shane's probably okay, but what if it does? And so you consider the Kentucky aspect. Even though that buyout is extremely high, what if Kentucky comes open? And Kentucky's never really been a football school. They want to be good in football, but they don't really want to win. They just hope to win. And I don't know if they're really ready to write that big check. Auburn's buyout of Hugh Freeze seems like pocket change compared to some of these other buyouts. And when you look at the money that was paid to Mike Gundy and to James Franklin, you begin to wonder what's the price of poker these days. And every one of these guys, everybody that has a job opening is going to overpay because they have to. And then some people are going to reach. I mean, if you go back and look at Billy Napier, he sat at UL Lafayette for years and years and years and declined to interview at State and Ole Miss. Got in the mix at South Carolina, didn't get the job. Shane Beamer did. And then he ultimately gets a great deal at Florida. Well, if I'm Billy Napier, I'm going to make him fire me, right? I had somebody tell me last week before Florida State lost that Mike Norvell may be movable this year. Well, he may not have a choice in the matter, right? And so you begin to think about the marquee jobs that may be open this year. and I think on our list too, we talked about UCLA. I don't know that that's a premium job, but as far as West Coast schools go, it's one of the best ones. I don't think there's any question about it. Oregon State is not going to get anybody that Penn State is serious about, or Arkansas, or UCLA, or probably even Oklahoma State for that matter. And so the landscape around college football and college athletics is changing. Before everybody got fired, and then the whole thing was, hey, we got to salvage our recruiting class. And you saw what happened. Penn State had a string of decommitments shortly after James Franklin was fired. You don't know who's getting that gig. And so the crazy season used to be from Thanksgiving to New Year's Day, and everybody had to go find a coach. You wanted to get somebody in before signing day, right? Because signing day used to be traditionally in February. So as we have changed the recruiting calendar, we have kind of inadvertently changed the calendar for everything. Now the signing period is basically December. Nobody waits to sign in February anymore. So it's December. So you can ill afford to wait to the end of the regular season to fire a coach. Because you got to find somebody quickly, because if you don't, you're going to lose all your recruits. You got to have some boots on the ground. They can say, hey, we're going to be here. We believe in you. And so that's what you're seeing. So I suspect we'll see some more coaches fired this time next week, and probably the next week after that. I think as some teams are eliminated from bowl eligibility, you're going to have more news. And when you begin to think about the marquee jobs that could be available this year, because last year the coaching carousel was fairly quiet. I mean, just look around our own league. I mean, how many first-year coaches do you see? Well, right? You can do the math. This year could be a wild year in the SEC. Then what happens? A new coach gets a job. Then there's an opening somewhere else. And then your coordinators start getting poached. Then your assistant coaches get better jobs somewhere else, or an opportunity to go somewhere else. And so everybody in some respects is impacted. That's why it's important, I think, for Mississippi State to have some continuity. We need to go win a couple ball games. You begin to think about what would it mean for this program. We have lost a lot of ground. There's no denying that. What would it mean for this program to get bowl eligible, win a bowl game, you have some juice, and then all around you and all around your conference, you've got these games of musical chairs where recruiting relationships are disrupted. Then you have a bunch of guys go and get in the portal. And as you guys know now, Penn State's players can go get in now if they want to. They can opt out. Say, I'm going to go get in the portal. Got a 30-day window. And so the guys that, kind of stick together and kind of keep that program in the road, they may have some players opt out, and you've seen some of that around the country. Not a lot, but you've seen some of it. And that's something to factor in too. With so many players from Power 5 programs having the opportunity to get in the portal earlier, it gives you an opportunity to kind of do some pre-portaling, because if they're in the portal, then you can talk to them. Did you think about that aspect of it? Yeah, that's important to understand too. So those are things when I think about, this is why it's so important for State to get bowl eligible, to ensure that Jeff Lebby is on the right track, is because I love chaos when it doesn't negatively impact Mississippi State. This is a chance for the chaos to be a friend to Mississippi State, provided we can go win at least 2 more ball games. And maybe you get more. But if you get bowl eligible, let's say for an example, let's say you beat Texas, and that's going to be a tall order. Let's say you beat Arkansas. Road game, going to be a tall order, even though we've had some success up there. I don't know what Arkansas is going to look like once we get there. But let's say you got 5 wins going into the Egg Bowl, and let's say somehow you beat Ole Miss. You get the Egg back, you get bowl eligible, maybe you go to Liberty Bowl or the Music City Bowl and you win that thing too. you talk about having some juice heading into recruiting. And now all of a sudden, Mississippi State, a school that a lot of top 10 recruits within the state kind of passed on, all of a sudden they're like, well, hey, this looks to be a more stable situation for me. Jeff Lebby and those guys have been with me on a couple of years, so it's like I've got a built-in relationship. Well, there's a new staff at Auburn that maybe you don't know. There's a new staff at Florida that maybe you don't know. Maybe Caden Daniels goes and gets in the portal, right, out of West Point. Who knows what could happen? But if you think it's crazy now, just wait a couple of weeks before we even get into November. There's a chance that this list of FBS jobs being open could possibly double, and certainly within our own conference. And that's the thing, like they asked John Cohen today, Al.com asked him, he talked about expectations, not the expectation I have for our program right now. John Cohen wants to win, and Hugh Freeze is his guy. So, he's going to give Hugh every opportunity to win. But John's also got an administration and donors to answer to. The same thing for Scott Strickland in Georgia. And, Scott has already put out multiple statements in the last 12, 14 months supporting Billy Napier. Well, if Billy Napier's not holding up his end of the deal, and he said as much today, he said, this is what we signed up for. So we understand it. We understand it extensively. And I think it's extremely important for Mississippi State. This is a year where I believe we could make some ground back up for the years that we lost. Because in the event you have all these coaching changes, then you're going to have a lot of people in year one. Not only does that help you in your recruiting class this year, it helps you next year. You've shown you could win. You've got relationships that matter while other people are trying to build them. And so it is extremely important. This is a very, very important juncture really in the direction of Mississippi State's football program. I don't think there's any question about it. And I don't think Mississippi State obviously is even thinking about a coaching change. I don't think so. And there's some people who said, Steve, if you go 0-8 and if you don't win another game, what do? That's a tough market, right? I think it may be a difficult time for us to make a change with so many other jobs out there that are bigger than ours. And, of course, there are people out there that say, hey, we'll figure it out. We've got the money to do it. Just because we have the money to do it doesn't mean we should do it. And that's the important thing here. I think we have to think about chemistry and longevity and consistency, because making a coaching change at a place like Mississippi State every couple of years is not a great thing. It's not a great thing. And so we need Leb to win a couple more at the minimum and put this program back on the track it needs to be to compete for things of significance here at Mississippi State. Very, very important. That's why your attendance is so important too. So I'm going to appeal to you now. If you are even on the fence about coming to the Texas game, we need you to go ahead and buy your tickets. Go ahead and buy your tickets now. Don't wait till the week of, because they're going to be gone. Texas fans will buy them. And you'll be on Facebook complaining about the pictures of all the orange on the east side, blaming our faculty, even though it won't be them. It'll be a small percentage of them selling those tickets. But we need you to go ahead and buy up those tickets for the remaining home games. We don't need to wait. And if you've been on the fence about coming, understand how important this is for the longevity and the trajectory of our football program. We need you there to create an unbelievable home field advantage. I appeal to you from one Bulldog to another. Please buy tickets and attend these ball games. If you hadn't done so, go to DutyNobleBook.com. You can get signed copies of all of my sports titles, including Flim Flam, Stark Villains, Alpha Dogs, Dogpile, and The Dude. And we're finalizing some things now for the next project, and I'll share that with you soon. Also, come float with us at True Rest Float Spa of Starkville. My wife runs a place. She's having a ball doing it. Just kind of helping people, she was a nurse for many years. I mean, I think it's a calling. I don't think it's just a profession. She's the kind of person that's always been a nurturer, and she loves kind of getting to know people and helping people deal with the calamities of life. And if you're a person that maybe you struggle with chronic pain or anxiety, or maybe you just need a break, maybe we can help you. We've helped many others. I can't promise you that life will be more abundantly, but I can tell you there's a good chance that the quality of your sleep improves, not to mention just your physical feeling, just feeling better It's the science of feeling great. You can check it out at TrueRest.com. Follow us on all forms of social media, True Rest Float Spa of Starkville. And come join us over at GenesPage.com. You can pay the full price and get the Paramount Plus as an add-on for free. If you take the 30% discount, you're not eligible for that until the promo package runs out. So we're talking a year. And if you're thinking, you know what, I can get the benefit of Gene's Page and the Power 247 and Paramount Plus for one low price, then that's the way that I want to go. So again, if you want to apply the discount, you can. If you don't care about Paramount Plus, which I think you should, I still haven't started Tulsa King Season 3 yet. I may start it tonight. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies and people can see a difference in the way we live.